Today is the fourth day of this February 1984 7-day retreat. We will continue reading from the autobiographical chapter in the Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, as translated by the brothers Feng. The name of the chapter is My Travels. Chapter 1. We'd finished yesterday where people at the monastery were asking the fifth patriarch, to whom did you bequeath the robe? And he answered, he who is capable has received it, and it was thus that the community found out what had happened. Whereupon several hundred persons set out in pursuit of the robe and bowl, and among them was a monk named Chen Wei Ming, who was formerly a general of the fourth class, a man of very rough character. He was so intent upon the pursuit that he was the first person of the group to catch up with me. I tossed the robe and the bowl upon the top of a rock, for since this represented the faith, or in another translation it says the truth, could one achieve it with violence? Then I hid myself among the tall grasses. That's a good idea. Supposedly Wei Neng was a teenager. Maybe a small, frail boy, we don't know. He hid himself. Wasn't going to meet up with this rough character face on. At least not to start out with. He just put the robe and the bowl down on the rock. That was in plain sight. When Wei Ming came to pick up the robe and bowl to take them away, he could not move them. Whereupon he called out, saying, lay brother, I came for the Dharma, or for the truth. I did not come for the robe. It's all very condensed account of what happened. Doesn't give us too much detail, but we can look at it ourselves. Try to find our way into this general turned monk who may have been at that monastery for many years. Before he came there, he served in the army as a high-ranking official. Serving in the army meaning defending one's country. I don't know, in those days did countries have flags? They probably did. Certainly there were always symbols around to defend. And for some reason he put down his weapons and joined the monastery. And here, in this monastery, the supreme symbol apparently was the robe and the bowl. One doesn't know where they were kept, but knowing a little bit about monasteries, places where symbols are revered, endowed with special sacred power, may have been kept in a very special place. Remember, a book in a Buddhist monastery is not supposed to lie on the floor. It's supposed to be carried high, only put in high places. And having seen a few photographs of altars of Zen monasteries, the monastery itself is usually so simple, but the altar is usually very elaborate. Often one has the feeling overloaded with stuff. All kinds of colors and things there on the altar, and who knows where this robe and bowl had been enshrined. After all, it was believed to be, maybe it was, I don't know, the robe and the bowl of the Buddha himself, which this old man, Bodhidharma, at the age of 120, was supposed to have crossed the ocean on a raft. Where did he keep that robe and bowl? We don't know. But he's supposed to have brought it over. Although that's never mentioned so much in connection with Bodhidharma, but here it is. And these sacred articles, anybody who's belonged to a church where sacred things are treasured and what goes with it, the aura, the obeisance to it, the whole atmosphere, incense and bells, these had been given in the middle of the night to some young upstart, never even been in the inner sanctuary, never had learned anything, couldn't even write or read. He was gone with them. One can feel the heart of that general pounding, and the whole group of people who may have wondered what had happened to the old man, that he did a thing like this. There was obviously no faith in what he was doing at this moment. This was something beyond I don't know the right word, the abbot's sphere of competence, to hand over this robe and bowl to somebody who was not known, not a dignitary or a seasoned senior monk, had fallen into the wrong hands. And that wrong must be righted. There's a real fanaticism that is connected with protecting the rightness, the sacredness of symbols. a purpose to one's life, one has something really important to do to get that back. There were all these crusades, if you remember, to restore the holy grave from the infidels back to the fidels. Little children were sent out in one of those crusades. It's unbelievable, but it happened. And they all perished. A children's crusade among all the other crusades of warriors, knights. This power of symbols, I think we have to really look at that and understand that. And not just take that for granted. Yeah, there is something. People say this. I can really feel the vibrations of this symbolic article, of this statue, of this something or other. I can feel it. But who has created it? In the first place. Symbols are not recent, they are as old as humankind. Maybe that's a false statement. Maybe there was a time when no symbols were scratched into bones and caves, but they appear very early. The swastika in reverse appears in caves and scratched on the walls at least 30,000 years ago. And sometimes appears on the chest of a Buddha. And then it was chosen as the symbol of the Third Reich, which was to be a 1,000-year Reich. The power of such a symbol, which is so ancient. Power in terms of all the traces it has left in the human mind, in the human brain. Finding power and getting power and strength from it and trying to protect it. Doing superhuman feats in the name of it. And killing other people in the name of it. Who don't have that symbol, who have another symbol which is then an abomination to the mind. One's own symbol, the sacred, the holy, the real, the true, the right, and the others, the opposite. Coming back to this robe and bowl there, lying on the rock. The legend here, the biography, which wasn't written down by Wei Nang, it was supposedly written by one of his disciples, adds the magic here too. It says he could not lift them. Another translation said it was so heavy he could not lift them. And in talking about this once with someone, a person said that someone trained in the Buddhist faith, Zen Buddhist. That our mind is so scientific these days, it sort of laughs at all miracles or at all strange happenings, but who knows? This may have actually happened, that they couldn't be lifted. Believe in it. It's come down over the centuries. Also remember once talking with someone, with a Zen priest. I don't know how we got into this conversation. It was while I was wearing this raksu. So was he. And we're talking about it. And I said, actually, it's only a piece of cloth. And something really changed in the conversation. He answered, "This is the Buddha's robe." And there was no question about it, that this was believed to be so. With fervor. I didn't express the fervor, but it was there. And I said, that itself is an idea, it's a concept. This is a piece of cloth, isn't it? I don't know how the conversation ended, but there was something. One had tread on sacred ground. And there was a total unwillingness to look, to question. And not only that, there was something threatening in the whole thing. To both of us. Because religious fervor and religious belief can be a very threatening thing, as any fervor, any fanaticism, in the name of something which is a symbol and an identity, which is one's life. Identity means I am identified with this. This is my life from now on, or has been. If you attack that, you attack me. Not that a person necessarily thinks in those terms, but acts in those terms. So here, up on a mountain, in the wilderness, the fifth patriarch had advised Wei Nang which way to go, to be sure to stay away from his pursuers. He had imagined that this would happen, but he was hoping that the boy would be safe. So here in the middle of nowhere, on a rock, lies this robe and bowl. Maybe the magic was not the weight of it that couldn't be lifted, but just seeing those objects for what they were, outside of their normal context. Could be that the imposed magic was gone, and there was the magic of seeing something directly, which is the only magic there is. Maybe. Seeing something without any idea about it. No background to it. Nothing, just what is. Actually, in another translation, it says that Wei Nang called to him, "Take it. This is nothing to be fought over." In the presence of this utter simplicity, dawned on Ming that maybe he hadn't come for this at all, that this wasn't really what he was after. It was denuded, stripped of all mind stuff. He says, lay brother, I came for the truth, I didn't come for the robe. So I came out, says Wei Nang, and sat on top of the rock with my legs crossed. Ming bowed to me, saying, lay brother, may I hope that you will instruct me in the Dharma. I replied, since you have come for the truth, you should be able to calm all the incidents in your mind. Do not evoke a single thought, and I will instruct you. We can interpret this to say, first make your mind blank and then we'll talk. Because this is not what he's saying. Maybe what he's saying is, let's just sit for a while, quietly. After all, this man came panting up that hill. His heart must have pounded. All the fervor, in addition to the adrenaline of the jogging. They sat together there. The boy and this general monk. Man, maybe at that moment he was neither. There was a humility, not a studied humility, but really openness, bare of rank, position, seniority. All of that had dropped away. Says here, it took Ming quite a while to do it. Calming down, not evoking thoughts. Evoking thought is, what is he going to tell me now? Or is he going to be mad at me? Angry with me? Not evoking any thought, not knowing. That's not evoking any thought. Thoughts there may be, or may not be, but one doesn't really know. What is the truth? doesn't even know who one is, or who this other person is, this young boy. Who is he? One can really see that for this monk, a whole structure, a whole edifice had crumbled. He may have been really disoriented. Not in the sense of confused, but not knowing. And Wei Nang said, when you're not thinking good and not thinking evil, not thinking good, not thinking evil, at that very moment, would that be the Venerable Wei Ming's original mind? Or true mind? Not thinking good and not thinking evil, not thinking right or wrong. If that is dropped, with that drops hatred. And division. What he wanted most, this robe and bowl, was nothing special. So there was no wanting. Just listening to someone saying, neither good nor evil. Is it possible to think neither good nor evil? Right or wrong? That the whole vast mind of judgment go out of circulation as it maybe says here, at these words, Wei Ming had the great awakening. Usually when we think right or wrong, good or evil, if we look at it, really look at it, observe it, isn't it always centered around me? Maybe I shouldn't say always, because that is too absolute a term, and maybe just very random thoughts flitting in and out, but we'll come back to those too. But most of the time, isn't it what is going to be right for me? One may have to scrape off the layers of altruism, what one thinks is altruism. At least inspect those very carefully. Whether what one thinks is for the sake of others is really also for the sake of oneself, because one wants to have the satisfaction of helping others. Or one cannot stand to see somebody else miserable, so one will do anything to alleviate the other person's misery so oneself feels better too. It's very difficult to live in the presence of someone who really feels miserable. Person may not be asking for any help, may not want to be helped, may want to be miserable, or work it out himself or herself. Can one watch at such a time what all goes on within oneself? Is one imposing upon this person help that is not asked, and why is one doing it? And not just say, I'm doing it to help him. We can say so many things to avoid looking, and then we believe our words. If one is skeptical about one's own words and rationalizations, then one can start looking. Whether it is so or not so, that most of the time that we're thinking right or wrong, it's in terms of our own right and our own wrong. What is good for me? Or those with whom I identify. The good of my group. And with this partition, with this separation, goes the evil. Or the wrong. The wrong that is done me by others, my being victimized. Or the evil of those who don't think or believe as I do. What is this state of thinking neither good nor evil? Not just to take that and think, well, maybe someday I'll reach that. It cannot be there as long there is me. Because me is always my and not my. Thinking, as long as the me is there in the middle, thinking is affected by that. That's why we're so confused. We don't know what's the best thing for me. We want so many different things. And they're often mutually exclusive or mutually contradictory, and then we say, I'm so confused, I don't really know what to do. If one would just experiment with it and lift the me out of there and look at the situation again, then one may be able to see it clearly. if I wasn't there, if it didn't matter whether I was happy or not, can I look again at the whole situation? And one may see many things much, much clearer. This is not advocating self-abnegation, but looking at what confused thinking is all about. What makes for the confusion, the choice, the shoulds and oughts, what should happen, what shouldn't happen. To me, I'm always there in that. But if I'm not there, that's not so difficult. One can assume, at least in thought, what if I'm not there? Then how would this whole situation look? And one can see quite clearly what leads to conflict, what leads to pain, or what is pain, what is dangerous. It's all revealed in the looking. No one can do it for us. Here this story goes on after what is called here the Great Awakening. Ming asked further, saying, in addition to these secret instructions and meanings which we have received from the fifth patriarch, is there still any further secret meaning? The mind has started up again in full force. For one thing, what secret instruction and meaning had been given? I don't see any. They just sat down together, and Wei Nang said, not thinking good or evil, may that be one's true mind, or original appearance, whatever the word is. It becomes now a secret teaching, a secret instruction. That's what happens. As soon as thinking starts up, it makes of the past moment a memory, an experience, an abstraction. One can watch that, and I think everyone has watched it and seen this for himself or herself. And in this mood of thinking and abstracting comes the thought, is there some more of that? Can you give me some more? Are there further secrets? And I answered, according to your question, you have not attained the secret meaning. If you will but reflect within yourself, you will find that the secret is right next to you. All right within you, right in front of you, right around you. right there. It is, the secret is the absence of secrets. Nothing hidden. Nothing hidden. Everything out in the open. If it's seen, then that's that. If one wants more, the curtain closes. The fog sets in, and the mind is thinking of the more, or the not enough. Do you see that? The more or the not enough immediately create mental, physical states. And of course, if there is any more, I have to go out and get it. The running starts all over again. Running away, someplace where there may be something more. Can one see that? Can that come into awareness very clearly? And then wondering, what is here? What is now? Or what is who? Me? I mean, who? Mu? What? Who am I? Right now? And quiet down again. Sit with the question. Sit with nothing. It's so hard, it's so difficult, because we always want to be stimulated by experiences. And from a long history of stimulation by experiences, we grow numb and dull and need more. And yet if one sits with the numbness, sits with the dullness, not calling them numbness or dullness, but attending to it, questioning it, with or without word, not knowing. And there may be a complete opening. A change. Wei Ming then said, even though I had been at Huang Mei, that was the monastery, I never actually awakened. Now it's just like a person drinking water and knowing for himself whether it is cold or warm. And then he asked, hereafter, how shall I go? And Wei Nang replied, when you're confused by an incident, you should stop. When you're confused by an incident, maybe not say you should stop, but can you stop? Can there be a stopping? Just stop. Stop. Look, listen, attend. Without the interference of wanting a solution, wanting the end of confusion. That's not stopping, that's going on. Stopping means stopping, really not knowing, being still. Still in the full presence of this huge confusion or whatever it is, hubbub. Somebody said in meeting when we were talking about something similar to this, yeah, but when you're at work you can't just stop. You're in a conversation, you'd be fired if you suddenly all of a sudden always stopped, didn't say anything. People think you're queer. Wow. There are moments. One doesn't have to always talk. You can finish the sentence and then let the others talk and listen. Listen not just with the ears, but all of oneself, open to what's happening. And it's possible for anybody to do if you need to do it, if you need to find out what's going on, if you want to understand the confusion. We always say we want to understand why we're so confused, but we continue with it. Wanting, thinking, escaping. Asking others for help, to add their confusion to ours. So what is this stopping that he's talking about here? You should stop. Can you stop? One has to do it. In the midst of hubbub. It doesn't mean shutting everything out. It's the opposite. It's letting everything in. Listening. From the belly, without making a thing out of that. And not knowing the answer. That's so hard for us to say, I don't really know the answer. One of the hardest things. Because we always want to be in the know. We've been praised for it since we've been born. We know something. We can say a word. We're praised for it. And then we become somebody special in our eyes and other people's eyes if we know things. To say, I don't really know. Very difficult. But it frees and opens. And allows to really look, and maybe then some clear thinking will come out of this looking. Didn't finish the sentence here. Wei Nang said, when you're confused by an incident, you should stop. And when you have the virtuous understanding, you may continue to think. Virtuous understanding does not mean here ideals. Think of all your ideals that you should strive after or represent. Virtuous has not this meaning. It means free from self-centeredness, free from self-interest. It doesn't mean the ideal of self-abnegation. One can follow that ideal and learn to be such a person, but that's not it doesn't come out of clarity. Clarity itself is humbling. Clear seeing is humbling. It has that effect. One comes down the ladder. And understands everybody else. Because our problems are universally shared. Our fears, our ambitions, universally, they're there. Self-centeredness is in everyone. It's the conditioned mind itself is self-centered. It's not unique. Nothing to be ashamed about. Shame is part of the self, part of the conditioning. Can it be seen? It's clear as a tree and its shadow in the snow. Who? What? No. Not knowing. We'll stop here for today.